Hello. For those of you who may be slightly confused, I attempted to do this and realized my microphone was all wrong. So I'm doing it for real. Um, we continue with Anyone Got a Match by Max Schulman. And a quick recap, briefly, for those who need a refresher. The story concerns two families. At this point, we have Jefferson, father, Virgil, son, surname of Tatum, in the town of Owens Mill in the American Deep South. And then over in Hollywood, we have Polly and Ira Shapian, a couple who have some history with Owens Mill, that town, from almost 20 years before in the story. The Tatums are connected by marriage to this a very large, extensive family called Owens, one of whom is named Barbara Ogilvy Owens, or Boo, and she seems to figure in the interactions and concerns of both Virgil Tatum and Ira Shapian. Which brings us now to Chapter 7. While Jefferson and Virgil Tatum poured sherry into the new faculty of Acanthus College, Barbara Ogilvy Owens Fuller, Boo, sat at home and thought about sex. Her home was a southern manor house with a portico and columns, surrounded by spotless white outbuildings, a paddock, a meadow, a lawn, and a fragrant sprinkling of magnolias, honeysuckle, and jasmine. Boo sat on the portico, wearing blue jeans and a checkered shirt, yet somehow looking as perfectly the mistress of the manse as though she were decked in a picture hat and a flower print dress of silk. She sat easy, her long, elegant bones comfortably arranged in a wicker chaise. A bourbon on the rocks stood on a wicker table beside her. The evening breeze was cool, a nightingale sang in a bay tree, and visions of coition passed sweetly through Boo's mind's eye. It would have come as a shock to Owens Mill, and most especially to Boo's constant suitor Virgil, to learn how much time she gave to thinking about sex. The consensus locally was that she had little or no interest in the subject. In the 18 years since Boo's son Gabriel had been born, tireless espionage by her devoted friends had uncovered not one single lapse of chastity. All were satisfied now that she was a woman of admirable virtue, and all were properly depressed. All were mistaken. Boo's sex life, though far from rambunctious, was quite suited to her needs. On those rare occasions when she felt her juices boiling over, she made a discreet trip to New York City and spent a discreet weekend with a discreet admirer. He was an eminently eligible man, which is to say he had no wife, no foreign accent, and most significant, no mustache. He was clean-living, gainfully employed, potent, considerate, agreeably scented, and he regularly proposed marriage. Boo, just as regularly, said no thank you. He accepted her rejections calmly, although he honestly wanted to take Boo to wife, or at least to multiply her infrequent visits by 10 or 20. He grew increasingly comfortable in this unencumbered, non-binding liaison. Boo always left New York feeling slightly besmirched, but in time the guilt would pass. Was this trip really necessary, she would ask herself, and the answer, if somewhat hesitant, was always affirmative. The trips were necessary. They kept her pores open and her reputation intact. Also, they gave her a chance to get to Bergdorf Goodman's. Every so often, Boo toyed with the idea of severing her New York connection and taking up with Virgil instead. But in the end, she always abandoned the notion. Two things were against it. First, though she had genuine affection for Virgil, it was not that kind. Second, Virgil would flatly refuse to consider unsanctified coupling with the lady he loved. His rigid antebellum code demanded marriage or nothing, and marriage is precisely what Boo did not want. She did not want to marry Virgil or her New York friend or any of the other hopefuls who kept appearing. Boo, in her own fashion, had an underlay of chivalry every bit as stout as Virgil's. She regarded it as a manifest breach of honor to become one man's wife while she was still in love with another. And she was in love with another. Now, tonight, 18 long years after he had left her bed, she remained deeply, immutably, rhapsodically in love with the father of her son Gabriel. It was Gabriel's father Boo was thinking of as she sat in the wicker chaise on the columned portico. Looking back over a gap of 18 years, she could still physically feel, lips on lips, body on body, hands on breasts and buttocks. She could hear his voice, she could see his eyes, she could smell his hair. The old rapture was upon her, fresh, undiminished, good as new. As these things are reckoned, thought Boo, I am a lucky woman. I have a perfect memory of a perfect love. I have enough sexual activity to forestall dry rot. I have here in Owens Mill a busy, productive life, an estate to run, horses to breed, dozens of kinfolk, and scores of friends to visit and entertain. I have a raft of worthy projects: the hospital, the orphanage, the symphony orchestra, the art gallery, the Red Cross, the League of Women Voters, and the Mermaid. Of all Boo's good works, the Mermaid was her very favorite. It was a quarterly of poetry, hand-set and deckle-edged, in which the bards of Owens Mill and its environs could find release for their lyric urges. To be sure, nobody actually ever read the magazine. Still, it was prominently to be seen in the homes of all the local bon ton. Boo was the Mermaid's editor, publisher, and sole financial backer, and in addition, writing modestly under the simple pseudonym Leda. Boo contributed to each issue a love poem brimming with ladylike but definitely sexy symbolism. But over and above sweet memories, beyond busyness and family and friends and civic virtue and the soughing of culture, Boo had one soul-salving, marrow-deep, heartwarming delight, her 18-year-old son Gabriel. He was a beautiful mercurial boy, a challenge and a comfort, an authentic genius in science and no fool in the arts and the humanities. Only one small aspect of Gabriel's character gave Boo occasional pause. He was something of a hermit. He vastly preferred machines and books to friends, especially to female friends. Boo, of course, did not like to see his life so circumscribed, but at bottom she was not dismayed. She felt sure that gentle, persistent prodding on her part would rectify his social underdevelopment, because Gabriel, stormy though his temperament and dazzling though his mentality, was at the same time a dutiful, obedient boy whose first thought was ever to please his mother. Yes, thought Boo again, I am a lucky woman. I am a happy woman, and save for one omission, I am a fulfilled woman. Inside the entrance hall of the house, Boo heard the grandfather clock chime the quarter hour. She rose and went in the front door. She headed toward the television set in the library, passing as she walked through a succession of gracious, uncluttered, tranquil, tastefully appointed rooms. Any woman coming for the first time into these rooms would be moved to admiration so great that envy would be shamed. Any man, no matter where his origins, would feel instantly and peacefully at home. As Boo entered the library, she found the television set not in its accustomed place in the cupboard. It had been dismantled into what looked to Boo like several million little tubes and wires and coils and gizmos, which were now arranged in a neat circle on the library floor. Seated in the center of the floor was Boo's son, Gabriel Owens Fuller. "Gabriel!" she cried, clasping her bosom. "Hush!" he said, not looking up. He was a tall, slender boy with a shock of raven hair, an olive complexion, a mobile mouth, a straight patrician nose, and black, smoldering, restless, enormously intelligent eyes. The eyes darted now over the ring of television parts around him, giving each one a short but intent examination. Sometimes he emitted little grunts of satisfaction, sometimes snarls of annoyance. His face, like a blinker light, turned alternately dark with frustration and bright with joy. "Don't tell me hush," said Boo sternly. "I'm your mother, remember?" Gabriel looked up. "Oh, hi, Ma," he said pleasantly. "That's better. Now, would you mind explaining what you're doing with the television set?" "Oh, sure. I'm adapting it for UHF." "But there's no UHF in this part of the country." "Bounds to come along in another 5-6 years." "Dandy," said Boo with a wintry smile. "Gabriel, I hate to be a bore, but there's a program I want very much to look at in 15 minutes. So look at the set in your bedroom." "Thank you. It's okay." "And while I am watching television, do you know what you will be doing? Picking up these pieces and putting them together?" "Precisely." No, Ma, I don't believe I will, he said with the air of a man who had given the question long consideration. I've been sitting here kicking around an idea. Maybe I'll drop the UHF after all. I've got a hunch, his voice rose in excitement, that with a little more equipment I can turn this stuff into an X-ray machine. Which no home should be without, observed Boo. I'll need to take the condenser out of the air conditioner, okay? Boo put on her gentlest, tenderest face. She laid a loving hand on Gabriel's shoulder. Son, she began. Dear son, God, he groaned. Here it comes again. Here it comes again, agreed Boo, still tender, still gentle. You know there's a freshman dance at Acanthus tonight. Why are you home fiddling with machinery instead of at the college, having fun? Fun, she says. Yes, fun, Boo insisted. Meeting people is fun. You know, conversation is fun. Even girls are fun. You want me to get you some testimonials? Girls are hell, he cried, flinging up his arms. Boo stayed sweetly calm. Gabriel, you are a normal, healthy, attractive young man. Why this morbid fear of girls? It's not fear, he declared. It's like I keep telling you, Ma, I just don't know how to talk to them. Nonsense. Anybody who can build an X-ray machine and fly a helicopter and make his own digital computer surely shouldn't have any trouble talking to a teenage girl. Ha, he exclaimed tragically. That's exactly the trouble. I talk to them about pi mesons and they get glassy. I tried Doppler, Rutherford, even John Glenn. So what happens? They get glassier and glassier, till finally they actually forget to chew their gum. This is fun. This is hell. This is a holocaust. Ma, let's face it, girls are just too damn dumb. I see. So what's your plan, Gabriel? To go through college without a date? I'm glad you asked that question, he replied seriously, because I've given it a lot of thought. This will come as a surprise, Ma, but it happens I do like girls. Only there's one small proviso. They've got to have a brain. Not a scientific brain necessarily, just a brain. So here's what I've been thinking. Maybe I've been looking in the wrong age bracket. Maybe I ought to find me a more mature type girl. How mature? Oh, I don't know, like 30, 35 maybe? Dear God, gasped Boo. Son, she said, deftly recovering her composure and her benevolent smile, listen to your mother, who gave you birth and loves you very dearly. Forget this plan of yours. Find a girl your own age. They're too dumb. Then educate her, mold her. Gabriel shook his head. They won't stay molded. Try. Oh, for me, for your mother? He sighed. Well, if you say so, I say so. Okay, I'll go to Acanthus tonight. Thank you. It won't work, you know. That's what I like. Confidence. All right, I'll hit the road now, but the dance doesn't start for another half hour. I'll stay with you and watch this TV show you're so keen about. Boo hesitated a tiny moment. If you want to, she said, but I don't think you'll like it. It's an old documentary, a rerun, made 7 or 8 years ago. I'm afraid you'll think it's pretty old-fashioned. Let's find out. Come on. He offered Boo his arm. She concealed a flicker of nervousness, managed a smile, took his arm. They went to Boo's room. Chintz, airiness, pastels, softness, delicately wrought furnishings. Gabriel switched on the television set. They sat in a pair of handsome little armchairs. The TV set crackled. A forest of lines appeared, waved, then formed themselves into a picture. It showed a mean street on Los Angeles Skid Row. Background music was heard, a drum softly stroked with brushes, an understated bass fiddle, a sad, goosey clarinet. The opening titles crawled over the picture. Ira Shapian presents The Sun-Baked Slums. Gabriel frowned. I know that name, he said. Watch the program, dear, said Boo. Ira Shapian, said Gabriel thoughtfully. Why does that name stick in my mind? Shh, said Boo. He fell silent. For 30 minutes, mother and son sat quietly and watched a stark staccato documentary about Los Angeles' sunbright netherworld. The winos, the junkies, the whores, the drifters, the perverts, the losers and the lost. It was a tough, laconic film, blessedly lacking in artiness. The commentary, brief and pointed, was spoken by Ira himself. As the program finished, the end titles began to crawl over the picture. Boo rose to switch off the set. Wait, called Gabriel, his eyes riveted to the screen. Produced and directed by Ira Shapian was the final credit before the fade-out. Better get over to the dance, dear, said Boo with an overbright smile as she turned the television set off. Ira Shapian, Gabriel repeated slowly. I know that name. Why? Boo carefully kept her tone casual. It's perfectly simple, dear. There was an Air Force base in Owens Mill during the war, and Mr. Shapian was stationed here. No doubt you've heard Virgil or somebody mention it. That's right, he nodded. Yeah, that's right. Good night, son. Have fun. But there's more, he said, not moving, his forehead furrowed in thought. A photo, he exclaimed with sudden certainty. There used to be a photo of Shapian in this house. Really? I don't remember. Not a photo of Shapian alone. I mean a group picture. There was Shapian and you and Virgil and another lady. Yeah, 4 of you, and it was in the room. In fact, right here. He walked over and pointed to a spot on the wall directly above Boo's small white desk. Why, I do believe you're right. Now that you remind me, yes, I distinctly remember that picture. But, she added quickly, I got rid of it a long time ago. How long ago? 10 years? It's crazy, said Gabriel. The lines in his brow deepened. How come I remember Shapian's face so clearly? Not so much his face, just the eyes. It's like I've been seeing those eyes every day, every hour. Now, why should I feel that way? My dear boy, answered Boo, if I knew why you feel the way you feel, I would have to be a genius like you are, and that I most definitely am not. True? True. Thank you. Forget it. A genius, as you so gallantly agree, I am not, but there is one thing I can do. Tell time. The dance at Acanthus has started, so saddle and ride, my boy. Look, Ma, about that dance, which you are going to, and no excuses. Listen, let me stay home and we'll look for the picture of Shapian. I'm positive it's still here. Boo took a deep breath. And I'm positive it's not, she said firmly, because 10 years ago I personally set a match to it. Gabriel searched her face. You're not kidding, are you? I am not. No, you're not, he said, nodding. You really burned it. You really did, I can tell. But why? Because every once in a while I get an irresistible urge to set fire to things like old photographs or young boys who don't mind their mothers. I'm going, he said with a shuddering sigh. Oh, God, he wailed as he lurched toward the door. No kiss, huh? Said Boo. We're all washed up, is that it? Gabriel stopped. He grinned, an abrupt, dazzling slash of white across his swarthy face. He hugged his mother hard, gave her a loud kiss on the cheek, hugged her again, kissed the other cheek. Bonne chance, she murmured, aiming him toward the door. Ça sera un débâcle, he warned. Sorry about the French. Not good at it. Va-t'en. She pushed him gently, then stood in the doorway watching him as he left the house. Then she went to her bedroom window and watched him some more as he walked briskly down the driveway, vaulted into a sports car he had built himself, guns the engine, and zoomed away with a spray of gravel. Tears, warm tears of felicity stood in Boo's eyes as she watched her son. How beautiful he is, she thought, her breast swelling with love. How like his father. Of course, there were some physical differences. Gabriel's height, for example, came not from his father, but from Boo, as did the leanness and the short Anglo-Saxon nose. But all the rest derived from his father, the startling black eyes, the brooding darkness, the quicksilver passions, melancholy followed instantly by euphoria, serenity chased by frenzy, despair hard on the traces of hope. Oh yes, thought Boo. Oh yes, dear Gabriel, you are Ira Shapian's son. You are his heart's heir, his soul's spit and image. But you will never know it, my sweet, beloved, good bastard Gabriel. Nor will I ever know it. It will always be my secret and nobody else's. The photograph is safely burned now. It was weakness. It was folly to keep Ira's picture on my wall as long as I did. But I needed to look at Ira's face, and you, dear Gabriel, were still a little child. How could I recognize so soon that you had the mind and memory of a genius? Well, the picture is gone now. The only time you will see Ira's eyes again is when you look into a mirror. You will be haunted, yes. There will always be a rustling of unease at the back of that incredible brain of yours, but you will not know. That's the important thing. You will not know. Ira will not know. Nobody will know. Boo's eyes gazed out the window of her bedroom, across her estate, across 2 miles of sloping countryside, and came to rest on the lighted skyline of the town of Owens Mill. A wry half-smile suddenly appeared on her lips. The Owens Mills skyline, if such it could be called, was a cluster of shops and houses, 1 and 2 stories tall, a tobacco warehouse, 3 stories tall, a cigarette factory, 4 stories tall, the Stonewall Jackson Hotel, 6 stories tall, and finally, standing in solitary phallic splendor, the Tatum Tower, headquarters and home office of Jefferson's Cigarette Company, 31 stories high, with a red beacon slowly revolving on the capstone. How ironic, thought Boo. Indeed, how comic, if such a thing could be called comic. Not a leaf dropped, not a sparrow fell in Owens Mill, except that Jefferson knew of it. There was no secret in town to which the old man was not privy, except the biggest, deepest, darkest secret of all, Gabriel's paternity.